Welcome to Young Asia Television.
Hello and welcome to the program. The focus now is on rebuilding the country, with particular emphasis on the northern areas that have been conflict-ravaged for so long. Here, the first step is demining of the land, so that displaced civilians can be resettled as soon as possible. In 2004, when Sri Lanka had to deal with the aftermath of the devastating tsunami, aid pouring in from all over the world was instrumental in Sri Lanka's recovery process. Similarly, our need for international assistance in terms of funding and carrying out projects such as demining is undeniable. Countries such as Japan have favorably responded to Sri Lanka's call for aid. In our first story, we take a look at Japanese representative Yasushi Akashi's visit to Sri Lanka and explore the challenges involved in readying the areas in the north for resettlement through the process of demining.
It was Japanese peace envoy Yasushi Akashi's 18th visit to Sri Lanka since 2003. Arriving on the 8th of June 2009, he visited IDP camps in order to get an overview of the humanitarian situation and met with dignitaries including the President to monitor progress in the government's promise to reach a political solution to the conflict. At a press conference on the 11th of June, he shared his impressions of his visit with the media.
It is clear to me that during the interval of 5 weeks or so since my last visit, tangible progress has been made in the conditions of life in these IDP camps in the north, Manik farm camps. More camps have been added. Conditions of life have to some extent improved.
Although satisfied with the government's current efforts in terms of providing for the IDPs, Akashi admitted that the main challenge still lay ahead, namely that of resettling civilians back in their homelands and removing their refugee status.
Observe.
The government has announced plans to resettle 80% of those displaced by the end of the year. But the prerequisite for this is the process of demining. Unless the lands are clear, the people cannot be moved with any guarantee of their safety. So the government, along with foreign donors such as Japan, have made demining a priority.
For full-scale resettlement to be done in a speedy manner, the first requirement is to make the permanent areas of habitation landmine free. And this is a gigantic task. And as you know, the government, its armed forces in particular, are working very hard in the area of demining. And a number of other governments, with the help of non-governmental organizations with experience in demining, are also participating in demining.
Demining has been in progress within Sri Lanka since the ceasefire in 2002. At the time, funding poured in, but donor countries were understandably discouraged when the war resurfaced in 2006, undoing a lot of the demining work they had invested in. But now that the war has ended, the response by international donors has once again spiked. The Japanese government is reported to have pledged $1.4 million towards demining activities in the north. Steen Wetleson, program manager for the Danish Demining Group, or DDG, one of the 4 largest demining outfits working within the country, finds this a very promising step in the country's next stage of recovery.
It's important And I know it's fully recognized with the government when I talk with them also. It's important to get people back home as soon as possible, to get re-established the economy. And that's where we need to clear the mines so they can be safety in their village and they can go out on their paddy fields and work and grow. And this would make them happy, but it would also make the whole economy in Sri Lanka booming again.
With an estimated 5,000 square kilometers to start working on, the DDG has their work cut out for them. Despite having worked in the country for nearly 6 years, they are now facing a unique challenge. As the LTTE retreated during the last stages of the conflict, they laid mines sporadically with absolutely no mapping system in place in order to delay the army's advance. It will be a very time-consuming exercise to figure out where exactly these mines are in order to even get started on demining. However, the resettlement of civilians might happen sooner than expected.
So the first job is for us is really to determine where can people actually return to, so the government can start the resettlement process very fast. Then afterwards, of course, we will go back to the areas where we find possible dangerous areas, and then that would be the much more detailed work. And that would be very time-consuming. We have the first preliminary result has come out from Mana, where the government has started resettlement, that actually showed that the initial survey, which is some very fast to do, released 80% of the land. So the government's perception or ideas of returning 80% of the people before the end of the year, it's not impossible.
As encouraging as this is, Steen admits that they will all be working on a very tight schedule in their efforts to meet the government's promised deadline. The DDG will have 700 personnel in their employ by September and also make it a practice to train and hire IDPs to do demining work so that they will have the finances to start their lives when they are resettled. Having completed almost 5 years in Sri Lanka, Steen's personal impressions of the country are positive. Revisiting areas where IDPs have been resettled after mine clearance, he has seen the country flourish in the east and hopes to see a similar trend in the north in the near future.
Seeing it in the east, I have never seen so many green paddy fields in the east than I did a few months ago when I was over there. They were everywhere, and a huge extra harvest coming in. I mean, this is the stories we see, that the successful resettlement, taking people from being IDPs, being kind of refugees, and taking them through the process back home to be normal, productive citizens. This is, personally, one feels good when we have stories like that, and there are many stories like that.